City planning is so important to the proper functioning of a city, something we often take for granted. Sydney is a beautiful city with many different suburbs, some designed beautifully, others not so well. In this series, I'm seeking to review suburbs all across Sydney, figuring out just what's right and what's wrong about the ways in which they've been built.
In this series, I'll be looking at 5 key areas: city planning, traffic flow, entertainment and leisure, public transport, and pedestrian accessibility, before giving my final score. Today, we're going to be looking at Castle Hill, the suburb that transformed itself from a drab, uninspired and badly trafficked piece of Sydney suburbia into a beautiful pedestrian and public transport accessible hub that it is today. Castle Hill is a suburb in northwestern Sydney, mostly located within the Hills Shire. It's about 30 kilometres northwest of Sydney CBD, and it has a pretty big population of nearly 40,000 residents. It's quite a large suburb, with 2 different city centres. There is a commercial city centre, Castle Hill CBD, to its east, centred around Old Northern Road, with 2 major shopping centres, Castle Towers and Castle Mall Shopping Centre. There is also a homemaker business park area to the west, but I won't go into that in as much detail in this video. In 2019, a new metro line opened that travels through Castle Hill, called the Sydney Metro Northwest. This metro allows for easy access towards nearby Epping and Chatswood, and will be extended to Sydney CBD in 2024, allowing for easy travel for commuters. The Metro line has 2 stations in Castle Hill, one in the eastern city centre called Castle Hill, and another one a bit further west called Hills Showground. Castle Hill is a beautiful CBD now. As we can see, the metro station is here, and around the metro station there are plenty of apartment buildings. They certainly aren't that beautiful, but they're practical, and they allow for easy access for residents to the nearby metro station and shopping centres. Castle Towers is a beautiful shopping centre opened in the 80s. Indeed, it's one of the biggest shopping centres in Australia, with plenty of retail options for consumers, as well as 2 food courts, a beautiful restaurant piazza area, and a cinema. In fact, it recently saw an expansion project that saw one of its car parks turned into a seamless link with the new metro station, including a new food court and shopping area. Castle Mall is a smaller shopping centre to the south of Castle Towers, more oriented towards Asian groceries, with many shops and even a food court. Through the centre of Castle Hill is a beautiful tree-adorned Old Northern Road, filled with crossings allowing pedestrians to easily get between Castle Towers on the north side and Castle Mall on the south side. Further up from here, we can see a bus interchange which exists right outside the metro station, allowing for seamless transfers between the metro station and the buses. Nearby there's a primary school, a library, a police station, an RSL club, and in general, everything you'd expect of a modern CBD. This is how a CBD should be. Plenty of retail options, easy access for pedestrians, and some of the easiest public transport access in the entire of Sydney. As a resident of suburban Sydney myself, to see a bus interchange the size of Castle Hill is frankly unheard of in suburban Sydney. Castle Hill CBD frankly is the suburban dream. But it wasn't always like this. You see, Castle Hill isn't just special because of its near-perfect CBD. It's special because, only 15 years ago, its CBD was merely mediocre. If we turn back the clock on Google Street View, we see that Castle Hill used to look a lot different. Instead of a beautiful block of apartments, there was a mobile petrol station. Instead of a metro station, there was indeed, although hard to tell, a war memorial. And, most importantly, instead of the quiet, beautiful, pedestrian-friendly Old Northern Road, with plenty of crossings, and even a massive bus interchange, there was the dreaded former version of Old Northern Road. That's right, Castle Hill didn't always look the way it does today. Just 15 years ago, Old Northern Road used to tear through the suburb with little mercy, heavily congested, rough, brutal. 4 lanes of traffic traveling at 60 kilometers an hour, completely disrupting the beautiful, pedestrian-friendly, peaceful facade that exists today. Buses would instead stop over here, right outside Castle Towers, instead of its own dedicated area that exists today. Castle Towers and Castle Mall did still exist, mind you, but I can assure you as someone growing up in this area at the time, they didn't feel as vibrant and friendly as they do today. Admittedly, I was only about 5 at the time, but there's no denying that the suburb looked a lot less friendly back then. It was more brutalist, more existent out of practicality than beauty. Looking at these pictures, looking at Old Northern Road tearing through the suburb, it doesn't exactly look like somewhere that you'd want to go to hang out with your mates. It's quite simple, really. Castle Hill, like most of Sydney, wasn't planned. Having a look at the historical imagery database for New South Wales government, we can see here that Castle Tower sprung up out of absolutely nowhere in the 1980s, in this formerly semi-rural town, and the town has just been growing ever since. Having a look at the difference between Castle Towers in the 1980s and today, we really can see a massive difference. There's no doubt Castle Hill has grown massively since the 1980s. I can't prove it for sure, but I'd say the 4-lane Old Northern Road that used to run through the CBD back in the 1980s didn't look this brutal. But by 2009 it definitely did. You see, Old Northern Road carries, or at least used to carry, traffic coming from West Pennant Hills and further east through to Showground Road, which went on towards the rest of Castle Hill and towards Bella Vista and Kellyville in the north, or further south, going down Old Northern Road to Balcombe Hills and eventually Seven Hills and Blacktown down south. I managed to source these 2 pictures from Ozroads of the road in the 2000s. I definitely recommend this website a visit, by the way, link in the description, and you can just see how it used to look like a typically congested road. Just ugly, honestly. Similar roads that come to mind include Concord Road through North Stratfield and Epping Road through Epping. It should go without saying that when you build a suburb, you shouldn't have a main road tearing through the heart of the CBD. Unfortunately, Sydney wasn't very well planned when it was built, and so there are far too many examples of this. Castle Hill used to be like this, with Old Northern Road ripping through its centre. But the town did something very few other towns have chosen to do in Sydney. They said no to their fate. It took a lot of digging, but I managed to find this document. The document is from 2008, back when Old Northern Road still ripped through the Castle Hill. I'll link it in this description. The document specifically explains that an earlier study included an analysis of the Castle Hill road network and concluded that the existing traffic network did not function effectively. Numerous intersections would have been overloaded by the year 2015, limiting the potential for future development in the CBD. Indeed, the council very specifically said in their document that the CBD, as the heart of the community, should be a vibrant and energetic place with pedestrian activity, restaurants, cafes, retail services, and places for people to enjoy and meet, taking full advantage of existing and proposed public transport opportunities and significant heritage items. It's not enough for people to be able to drive somewhere. That was easy enough in Castle Hill, given Castle Towers has ample parking. You need to be able to walk around as a pedestrian too, and quite simply, Castle Hill didn't used to be as pedestrian friendly as it is today. So, how did the Hills Shire Council go about repairing Castle Hill? Well, the problem mainly lied in Old Northern Road. So, they basically decided to get rid of it, at least within the CBD itself. And so was born the Castle Hill Ring Road. Ring roads are essential pieces of infrastructure that carry traffic around a CBD, rather than right through it. There are 2 sides to the Castle Hill Ring Road, as we can see on this map. The Western Ring Road, which goes above, and the Eastern Ring Road, which goes below. The Western Ring Road consists of McMullen Avenue and Pennant Street. It was opened in the late 90s by Castle Towers when it was expanded. The Eastern Ring Road consists of Terminus Street and Cecil Avenue. As we can see here, this corridor used to be very narrow. Indeed, there were barely even any lines dividing the road.
But then, in around about 2008, they'd widened the road.
And subsequently it took on the bypassing role that it has today.
Access to cars on this small section of Old Northern Road was subsequently closed between Terminus Street and Old Castle Hill Road,
with only buses allowed to access this admittedly rather drab bus interchange.
What the council had done was deceptively simple, and yet effective. Traffic could no longer travel along this segment of road. So, traffic headed west would have to use the Western Ring Road, and traffic headed south would have to use the Eastern Ring Road. Through traffic would now no longer be directed through the centre of Castle Hill. And so began the next stage of their project, the beautification of the CBD. The speed limit was reduced to 40 kilometers an hour, the road was reduced to 2 lanes with parking spaces, and 2 new crossings were built to allow easy access between Castle Towers and Castle Mall. Trees were planted and the footpaths were widened. And then, almost a decade later, the metro, as we can see here, opened alongside the superseded section of Old Northern Road, and the road was turned into a beautiful, massive bus interchange, allowing for large volumes of buses to access the suburb every hour. The suburb is now, frankly, quite beautiful. Much less traffic travels through the CBD, opting for the ring road instead. And the suburb is very accessible for pedestrians, public transport, commuters, and vehicles alike. The council didn't have to do this. They could have continued to let traffic rip through the CBD. They could have made it next to impossible for buses to access the new metro station along the former de facto bus interchange of Old Castle Hill Road. They could have left the suburb a drab, uninspired piece of typical Sydney suburbia. But they didn't. They did what very few other councils have done recently. They fixed Castle Hill CBD. I should mention that, supposedly, the original plan for Old Northern Road through the CBD was for it to be closed and converted into a full pedestrian promenade, similar to what was done in Eastwood, as you can see in one of my earlier videos. However, they changed their mind on this, and I personally find this a little bit disappointing. Having no road through the CBD is obviously better for pedestrians than having a quiet road, and honestly, Old Northern Road doesn't serve much use through the CBD anymore. The area could have been turned into a beautiful outdoor park with seating, shelter, and maybe even markets. Alas, it's probably a lost dream now.
That is not to criticize what has resulted. Castle Hill is still very beautiful in its current form, and I applaud the suburb. It risked sealing its fate as a boring suburb, no different to many other suburbs around Sydney, but it said a firm no and transformed itself into a suburb with good traffic flow, easy pedestrian and public transport access, and just a generally beautiful vibe. Castle Hill is the suburb that fixed itself against all odds, and it should get all the credit that it deserves. And with that, I'll now give the suburb my rating.
For city planning, I give the town a 5 out of 5. For traffic flow, I give the town a 4 out of 5. For entertainment and leisure, I give the town a 4 out of 5. For pedestrian accessibility, I give the town a 5 out of 5. For public transport, I give the town a 5 out of 5. That gives Castle Hill a score of 23 out of 25. Well done, Castle Hill. If you liked this video, please do consider liking and subscribing. Thanks for watching.